Majority of your narcissists are in controlling positions at work. They're the boss, they're the manager, they're the supervisor. Any place they can elevate, falsely, of course, their stature in society. Uh, and they do it by stepping on the people below them, and they get pleasure from that. It boosts their ego to knock you down, to tell you how much you make, to tell you you don't have the right to make that decision. They do. Um, they did it at home with their kids. They did it at home with their wife, uh, or they did it to their husband. And in a materialistic society, narcissists do well, and they do well on purpose because they use money as a weapon, not as a tool. Uh, and the way that they used it as a tool, though, is to control, and in that way, it becomes a weapon. And the more money, the more control, the more of a weapon. And that's their logic, if they have any. Uh, being a scapegoat, which everybody around them, you're either with them or you're against them. And if you're against them, you're a scapegoat. The Democrats are a scapegoat. The Haitians that ate dogs and cats were scapegoats. It just goes on and on and on. Immigrants are scapegoats. Uh, I don't have a problem. It's the immigrants that created the problem. I'm not lazy. They just work too hard. So it's just one denial after another. They're just denying their own shortcomings, their own inability to look at themselves and blame themselves for their mistakes, which would be a good thing because then they could correct those mistakes. But as long as I'm blaming you for my problems, like a lot of you blame me for your problems, you're not looking at yourself. You're looking at how you can redirect your problems onto someone else. If I make it, if I become the problem, then you're not the problem. And that's the goal for you. But the goal should be to look at your problems, to look at your flaws, uh, and correct them, and make the proper adjustments to move on from them. But they never do that. They get stuck. It's like I think you get tired of the narcissistic family because it's always the same. Christmas is always the same. The fights are always the same. Uh, the one that gets beat up is always the same. The one that gets uh, praised as the great one is always the same, and that's what they like because that's the control. They want the same because that's predictable, and being predictable is good for a narcissist. But they don't want to be found out that they're a narcissist because that ruins the predictability. You know, Although narcissists they follow a playbook, they don't want you to know the playbook, and that's why they hate me making videos like this because I'm teaching you the playbook, what to look out for. No birthdays, no graduations, uh, always making yourself smaller than the parent. Uh, the parent's always better or gets credit for anything you do. It's their genes. It's they pushed you to go to that school. They paid for that school. All those kinds of things. Uh, never. You did a great job. That's great. Uh, Everybody loved what you did. You'll never hear that. unless they also give the parent credit as well and more of it. Uh, you know, you're lucky your father's a quarterback or was a quarterback, because now you're a great quarterback, kind of thing. Like a backward compliment, backhanded compliment. But, you know, uh, and there is no limits. It can be in prison. It can be in the boardroom. It can be anywhere. Narcissists live everywhere, uh, and they play their playbook everywhere. Any place they can get a footing, if they can get control of some people, they can get flying monkeys to follow them. They will do it anywhere because that makes their ego go up. Now, they also have to create a scapegoat wherever they are. If you're in a job, you may be the scapegoat, or someone is the scapegoat. If you're in school, someone is a scapegoat, or you are. And the one that they pick on in the class, uh, the one that is ignored. Um, they tell you your grades or the class's grades so that everybody knows where you fall within the pecking order, and they tell you what number you were on the list of graduates. Did you graduate first in your class? That's all false ego. Uh, Now, the one thing with narcissists is they're not smart, so they're not the person in their class, but they want their kid to be. Narcissists are generally not smart people. They want to appear smart. Will they will they will steal ideas from somebody else and call them their own, uh, and never tell you they stole them, and deny it to the end when they get caught. But those are the ones that are the narcissists in your class, the ones that are cheating, stealing, having sex with the boss to get a promotion, stuff like that. Anything dirty, anything underhanded is right up their alley, but they can't get caught. They can't get caught. Uh, so it's like Trump rapes children, and he can't get caught. You know, he's got all those pictures, but he denies it, like they didn't happen, because in his mind he can't get caught. And I would say he is caught, and he has a cult following, and the cult following disregards those pictures, says they're AI or something. They make up the story in their head so they can move on from them and not give up their cult following. You know, and when he's gone, they will find a new cult leader. Just like the Nazis lost Germany, now the Nazis are in Israel, and they're here. But they didn't go away. Their ideology didn't die when Germany died. Uh, it just moved. Moved to Argentina, and moved to Israel, moved to the United States, and then it'll never go away. That tyranny is always a threat because it never dies. The people that want to do the tyranny still exist. Their ideology still exists. Communism still exists. Socialism still exists. Whether they work or not, they work for somebody, and that's why they still exist. Orban with Hungary, all the things he did. even though it had a horrible ending, Orban benefited all those years by being what he was, and by the people that followed him benefited as well. So as long as you have people benefiting, then you will have people suffering. Correctional officers benefit from what they do. And as long as that's the case, then you always have prisons. Generals benefit from what they do. And as long as they do, you always have war. So uh, it's the opposites that always true, the black and white. And with the narcissists, they try to make it not so clear. I mean, they do a horrible, horrible job of it. Horrible job of it. But in their mind, they think they're fooling people. In their mind, when you call them out, when you say, "Oh yeah, I wasn't fooled," all of a sudden you're the scapegoat. All of a sudden you're the bad guy. You know, when the attorney general doesn't do what Trump wants, he gets rid of them. When the governor of the Fed doesn't do what he wants, he gets rid of them. So you're good until you do what you want. As long as you're doing what they want, you're fine. That's why nobody can say he lost the 2020 election, because that's them doing their own thing, and they'll be gone in a New York minute if they say that. And that's why no matter how you question or pose the question, you'll never get that answer. And it shows what pieces of garbage they really are. And it's it's the power of the narcissist, and that's how it is with your siblings and your aunts and your uncles and your cousins. They'll never admit the narcissist is a narcissist, even though they know, because they don't want to be the scapegoat like you. So they'll do anything they can to avoid that. You know, everything goes under the rug, and someday the piper gets paid and comes to get paid, and you know, usually it's after the narcissist dies, so they get away with it. But there's also the spiritual side of it, where when they go on to the other side, it all comes back to haunt them. They go to the worst places, they suffer the most on the other side, and they pay for their crimes. They pay for their evilness. And, you can threaten them with that. You can tell them, wait until you pass over. And they won't listen to you. But one thing, a narcissist doesn't think they're ever going to die. Trump is 80. He's the president. He's 80. He doesn't think he's going to die. That thought never enters his head. So that's a telltale sign of a narcissist. They never think they're going to die. And they can't, because they know what they're going to face. They know what they're going to face, and they can't face that. So they deny it. And, but if you're a scapegoat, you're a lucky person, because you see the world in a way that nobody else does. And you're willing to stand up to the world in a way that nobody else is. And that's not a bad thing. Sure, you suffer for it, but you will be rewarded for it in the end. Maybe not in this life, but when you cross over, you will be rewarded for it. Payback is a bitch, and what they did to you will be paid back.